Just a quick update before I get started. I originally released this episode back in September of 2016 when my brother and I were in the midst of raising money for several groups as part of the Mongol Rally. Now that our journey is over, our crowdfunding campaign has officially ended, but you could still donate directly to our charities, or if you'd like, you can also help support this podcast. For more info, visit farfromhomepodcast.org/support. Thanks.
Hi, it's Scott. I'm still working on putting together the next podcast, but in the meantime, I've got a mini episode I wanted to bring you this time about an aspect of my trip I haven't really discussed so far. If you remember back to the first episode, I mentioned that while this is certainly a crazy, fun adventure, my brother and I are also doing this for a good cause. In fact, one of the rules the organizers of this event, the Mongol Rally, have instituted is that all participants have to raise at least 1,000 British pounds, or about $1,400, for charity. Now, the first 500 goes to the official rally charity, a group called Cool Earth, which works with indigenous communities around the world to raise people out of poverty and help prevent rainforest destruction. My brother and I were trying to decide where to give the rest of the funds we raise, and one particular organization immediately came to mind. It's a group whose work I saw firsthand during a reporting trip I took to Haiti back in September 2010, 9 months after that enormous earthquake that destroyed much of the city of Port-au-Prince and killed hundreds of thousands of people. The devastation was especially bad because Haiti was a pretty desperate place even before that earthquake. As you may have heard, it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and it lacks a lot of basic functioning infrastructure that most of us in places like America would probably take for granted. Let me give you an example. Each morning during my stay in Port-au-Prince, I awoke to the sound of water tanker trucks like this one, paying homage to Celine Dion. They drive around the streets advertising their services, sort of like an ice cream truck would do back home. Other trucks played MIDI versions of soccer chants or Christmas songs like Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which, absent their cultural significance, would blare out of the speakers, even in the sweltering heat of the summer. I was curious to figure out what the deal was with all these tanker trucks, so I started asking around, and the explanation I heard totally amazed me. You see, close to 1 million people live in Port-au-Prince, but most of the city doesn't actually have a connected water and sewer system. Many homes and businesses get their water delivered, and when people go to the bathroom, the waste usually ends up in unlined pits that not only smell bad, but spread diseases like that outbreak of cholera that hit Haiti several years ago. And it's a similar situation throughout the country. Basically, it's a huge public health crisis, but thankfully there's a group that's addressing the problem with a creative solution. And to tell you about it, let me introduce you to a woman I met on my trip.
My name is Sasha Kramer, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of the organization SOIL, which stands for Sustainable Organic Integrated Livelihoods. And we've been working on EcoSan in Haiti since 2006. EcoSan, sorry, and that stands for Ecological Sanitation, which is when you transform the poop into fertilizer. Our mission is to transform wastes into resources.
So it's a bit gross and not a subject people generally like to talk about, but stay with me here, because it's actually really important work. Sasha realized this herself after she came to Haiti from Berkeley, California over a decade ago as part of a human rights delegation. She quickly fell in love with the country and decided to stay, so then she started thinking about how she could help.
After 2 years of sort of looking at acute human rights violations, visiting prisons, attending demonstrations, I realized that the most prevalent human rights abuse in Haiti is poverty and is the lack of access to basic services. So that was when I got interested in toilets. It's something we really take for granted. And then when you don't have one, you see how not only from a public health standpoint, but really from a dignity standpoint, how important it is.
She had a PhD in ecology, but she didn't know anything about sanitation, so she did a bunch of research, figuring it out as she went along. Eventually, she trained and hired some local carpenters to build latrines, but these were different from all the other latrines in Haiti. She showed me how they work.
We have these little 15-gallon drums that go under the toilet seat in each of the toilets.
After people go to the bathroom, they sprinkle a shovelful of sawdust into the bucket to keep away flies and stop the smell.
And every week, once a week, we go around and collect the drums.
They're taken back to a central composting site and covered with sugarcane stalks left over from a local rum producer.
And then you end up with this pile like this one, which is pretty fresh. And you can see it's got a little bit of an ammonia smell, but it's really, considering this is sewage, it smells pretty nice, I think. It smells earthy.
Then everyone waits as the microbes do their work.
So they get the nitrogen from the poop, and then they get carbon from this sugarcane, and they find all this food, and they start reproducing and dancing around. And if you were to stick a thermometer in this, that pile over there went up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And then at that temperature, no pathogens can survive. So we tested it, and it's completely pathogen-free, and now it's just going to take a few more months to fully decompose into something you could use in agriculture.
80% of Haitian farmers can't afford any fertilizer, Sasha said. So if more human waste were recycled in Haiti, this natural fertilizer would make a huge difference for agricultural yields, as well as improving soil quality in a country that's been thoroughly deforested over the years. Now, I'm guessing this might be the first time many of you have heard about this, but this process has actually been around for thousands of years. It was used in ancient China and is now common in parts of Africa, Mexico, and even Sweden. Until Sasha's group came along, though, it was never tried in urban settings like Port-au-Prince or in emergency situations like in Haiti's numerous tent camps that sprung up in the aftermath of the earthquake.
Suddenly it's the new big thing. Everybody wants to do it because their toilets are such a mess. These are latrines right here. But they're not being used anymore because they've filled up and no one has come to empty them. So this is a problem with the latrines. They put them in, they work for a couple months, and then they fill up, and that's the end of that.
But her toilets are totally different.
What you notice, even if the toilet is open, it really doesn't smell in here. These are the only toilets that you'll see in Port-au-Prince right now where people would actually want to sit on the steps and hang out and tell jokes, and it's a nice, shady place to sit and relax. We always put these flowers in our toilet as a symbol of cleanliness, and I think it does help. It's a nice touch to just sort of make it feel like a place you'd want to keep clean.
At the time of our interview, Soil had installed 170 composting toilets and was continuing to expand. But that was 6 years ago, so I called up Sasha recently to ask what had changed since my visit. She told me Soil's operation has now grown to include 750 toilets, both in Port-au-Prince and in northern Haiti. And she also had another positive development to report.
The government put in their very first waste treatment site. So prior to the earthquake, there was no waste treatment whatsoever in Haiti. And now they've built 2 sites outside of Port-au-Prince, but only one of them is currently open. While it is a long ways from being able to solve the problem of waste treatment, at least it's a step in the right direction.
Meanwhile, Soil has continued to get better at what it does.
So we're producing now about 5 metric tons of compost a month, and the amazing thing is we're selling out every month. So we've really identified a huge market for this in Haiti. There's very few organic fertilizers available, and because most of the soil fertility problems have stemmed from soil erosion, it means that there's just a huge need for actual physical soil. So we generally have a wait list several months long for the compost, and it's been really exciting to see how much people appreciate it.
Their customers run the gamut, she said, from individual farmers to backyard gardeners to large agricultural companies and even the Haitian government. By selling the compost and charging a small monthly fee to families that rent the toilets, the group is able to recover some of its costs, but it's still working to become totally self-sustaining and profitable, with a goal of eventually spinning off much of the business to local Haitian entrepreneurs. For now, it's still dependent upon private donations to help fund the work, so that's why we've decided to support Soil as our main charity on the Mongol Rally. Now, Personally, I always feel a bit weird about donating money somewhere because I don't usually know where the money's going or how it's being spent. But I actually feel really good about this group because I saw their work with my own eyes, and it seems like a win-win situation for everyone involved. You know, they're tackling a big environmental and public health problem, and unlike most of the NGOs operating in Haiti where foreign aid workers swoop in and do what they think is best, 90% of Soil's employees are people trained and hired from the local Haitian community. Plus, Sasha hopes that if her group can come up with a sustainable business model, it could then be replicated by other organizations doing similar work in developing countries around the world. At this point in the episode, you're probably expecting me to beg you to donate. And remember, I worked in public radio for many years, so I certainly know how to beg. But you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'll just say that if any of this sounds interesting to you, you've liked what you've heard, and you do want to pitch in, you could visit my website at farfromhomepodcast.org and click the support link for more information. And while you're there, if you're feeling especially generous, you could also chip in a little to help defray my travel and podcast production expenses, and I'd be eternally grateful. Soil is in the midst of celebrating their 10th anniversary, so it would be great to toss a little their way to help them continue their work for the next 10 years. Thanks as always for listening, and I'll leave the last word to Sasha.
Until I moved to Haiti and became acutely aware of what it means when you don't have a toilet, I didn't really think about it. And since starting to do this work, it really makes me, when I'm traveling, just hold that in the back of my mind. You know, what is happening to the waste in this city? And I think you're going to be on a really long trip, so you're likely to see a lot of different sanitation systems along the way. And it'll be kind of cool to keep that in mind.